My great idea was a men's lifestyle website that was different than other men's lifestyle magazines or websites that are out there. The idea for the artofmanliness.com came to me in October 2007, and I was in a Borders bookstore, rest in peace Borders, over on 81st and Yale, and I was in the magazine section, just killing time. One night, I was taking a break from studying. I was in law school at this time, studying to be an attorney. And I was looking at the magazine covers like I always do, and I was just looking at the headlines and the covers, and I just had this realization, every single month with these magazines, it's the exact same thing. You're gonna see articles on how to get six-pack abs. You're gonna see articles on how to, get with as many ladies as possible. You're gonna see articles about, a lifestyle, promoting a lifestyle that most average guys can't afford. These exotic trips to Africa and Australia and New Zealand, doing really, it cost $30,000. And I'm up to my eyeballs in debt as a law student. It just didn't resonate with me as a man. It didn't inspire me to be a better man. And so I just had this idea, you know what? I'm tired of doing this every month. How about I just start the men's magazine that I always wanted to read? That, stuff, I'm gonna put stuff in it that I want to see in a men's magazine. And so I decided, you know what? Blogging, you can buy a domain for $10. You can get WordPress for free. I'm just gonna start doing that. So that's what I did. That night, and it was funny, I brought this, I went snooping around for this. I had my trusty moleskin in my pocket that night when all these ideas were coming to me, and I started writing down sort of the concept of the art of manliness. And this is the page, this is where it all began 5 years ago, and here we are, 8 million page views and impressions later, and 135,000 subscribers. And I thought this was funny. This kind of summed up what the art of manliness was all about. If you're looking to find out how to get six-pack abs or how to be a player, you've come to the wrong place. The Art of Manliness, if you've been to the site, it's sort of this kind of throwback, vintagey men's magazine. We write content about how to dress well, but on a budget. We talk more about style, not fashion. So you give advice that will be good 10, 20 years from now. We talk about, the big, really popular thing is straight razor shaving, or shaving with safety razors like your grandpa did, growing mustaches. We give career advice and stuff like that, but stuff that's different from what you see else out there. And the other thing we do is, I didn't want to do the whole babes thing. You go to a lot of men's websites, and it's just galleries of babes, hot babes. And I don't want to do that. I'm a married man. I'm past that. I didn't want to be a bro anymore, right? So that's the idea. How I brought this idea to fruition, actually, you have to go back about a year and a half earlier to that. In 2006, I started law school at the University of Tulsa. This had been my life's dream, to be an attorney. And I worked really hard to get there. And during my first semester of law school, I discovered blogging. I started reading a lot of these personal finance blog sites that you might have seen, like The Simple Dollar, Get Rich Slowly, Zen Habits, and they were all they're all really big now, but they were just getting their start. And I thought, this is really cool. I was reading Life Hacker, getting productivity tips on how to be a more productive law student. And I thought, this is awesome. I could do this. I want to do this. So I started a blog that first semester of law school in 2006 called The Frugal Law Student. And the tagline was, mitigating my crippling law school debt. So it was all about what I was doing as a law student to mitigate my crippling law school debt. And also my wife's grad loan debt, my undergrad debt, car loan, whatever. So I would just share things with my friends and family. Here's what I'm doing to save some money. So we were, thrift storing was a big one. I did an article like brushing your teeth with baking soda. Just really silly things. And the funny thing was, I just sent it out to a few of my friends and family, but it started getting a following somehow. And people, law students, were emailing it to their law student friends in California and New York. And in about a year, I had about 1,000 subscribers, which is pretty good for a first-time blogger. And here's the thing. During this time when I started blogging, I knew nothing about like web design. I knew nothing about HTML. I knew nothing about PHP. I knew nothing about servers, graphic design. I was a humanities major in college, and I went to law school. So like this whole geek stuff, just I didn't know anything about. But I didn't have the money to buy an expensive web designer, have a nice design. I didn't have the money to, do a lot of nice things that you can do with a website. So I had to learn everything and do it myself. So I had to invest a lot of sweat equity. So with the Frugal Law Student, I learned how to do Photoshop, but I didn't use Photoshop. I used the poor man's Photoshop, which is GIMP. That's what I did, do my graphic design. I went to W3 schools to learn how to do HTML and CSS. I would, search the WordPress, forms that are free there to figure out, okay, I want to do this cool thing, but I can't do it. How do you do this with PHP? And I learned how to do that there. So yeah, I really cut my teeth on how to create a blog and run it and make it look nice with the Frugal Law Student. So fast forward to a year later, this is 2007, I was in that Borders, and I was like, this would be a great idea. I'm sure there's other men who feel the same way with me. They're tired of like the babes and the six-pack abs and whatever. So I had the idea, and I told my wife, I came home from Borders really excited. I was like, Kate, I got this great idea for a blog. I think it'd be a big success, bigger than the Frugal Law Student, 1,000 subscribers. And it's called, it's gonna be like this kind of vintage men's magazine, kind of throwback to grandpa. And I remember I was like, I gotta come up with a name for it. And I remember I pitched her like the manly arts, because I remember I read this book in college it's called The Manly Arts, and it was about pugilism. And she was like, no, that's not cool. And so we're like, okay, The Art of Manliness. She's like, oh yeah, that's awesome. So I bought the domain that night, $10 on DreamHost. And I remember my wife's like, wait, you're about to start law school finals. You can't start a new blog and do your finals. And I was like, okay, you're right. So I'll wait till the winter break to get this thing going. So yeah, winter break 2007, I started designing The Art of Manliness. And I thought it looked awesome for being done by this law student who knew nothing about graphic design. It looked like had the wood background, and I picked out, one of the benefits of doing the whole vintage vibe that we do on the site is a lot of the images, which cost money oftentimes, a lot of the images that we use are in the public domain. So it's free. It's like abandoned copyright or stuff that's like made before 1923, so I can use it for free. That's one of the, not only does it's great for branding, but it's cheap. I Googled, I wanted like a cool logo and I had in mind, like I want like an old-time boxer guy with a mustache. And so I Googled that as like old-timey boxer with handlebar mustache. And the guy that came up was the famous bare-fisted pugilist John L. Sullivan. I was like, that guy is going to be the face of Art of Manliness. So it's like the guy, you've probably seen him, the mustache, has his hands in the fist, and that was the banner. And it looked horrible. It was all grainy because I didn't know what I was doing with GIMP. But for the most part, it looked okay. And I launched it in 2008, January 2008. The first article was an article it's called How to Shave Like Your Grandpa. And it's about how to use a safety razor and badger brush and cool shaving creams. And we had some other kind of career advice and relationships advice and things like that. Relationship advice that was geared more to like men who wanted a serious relationship or men who were married or whatever. And I told my followers on the Frugal Law Student, said, hey guys, I started this cool new blog called The Art of Manliness. You should check it out. And yeah, right off the bat, The Art of Manliness had like 500 subscribers that first month. It took me like a year and a half, like half a year to get that on the Frugal Law Student. So I was leveraging that audience that I already had. And so I was just, putting out just 3 posts a week. It was just me at the time, because I was trying to balance that in law school and a job and being a husband. And then I was also on the law review at law school. And so I was trying to, I could only publish 3 times a week. So one day, so things were kind of slow for the first month or two. And then one day in March 2008, everything just blew up. My life changed. I was in I can remember I was in my wills, estates, and trust class learning about inheritance. And I remember I was checking the site, just seeing how things are going, and my site wasn't loading. It crashed. And I was like, what the heck is going on here? So I was like frantically trying to figure out, okay, what's happened, blah, blah, blah. And I found out my article on how to shave like your grandpa got on Reddit, got on Dig when Dig was a thing, got on Delicious. It went viral, and I had so many visitors that day, it crashed my site. And from that moment on, I mean, I was bummed that my site crashed, but I was excited that it crashed because we were getting so much traffic. I think that day we had over 100,000 visits in a single day. And I was just so excited. And ever since that moment, we were kind of on the radar with these social news sites. Our traffic just started going up because people were submitting our content to those sites. And so after that, like from March into the summer, our traffic and subscriber count just was going up exponentially every month, by leaps and bounds, to the point where we had over 10,000 subscribers just after the first 6 months. And then what was crazy was people started knocking on our doors, book publishers. We want to turn your blog into a book. Like, wow, that's crazy. So, I got to meet, things got so crazy with the site that I asked my wife, who was a teacher, a history professor at Tulsa Community College, fantastic writer, to help me with this. Can you help me write? You're a great writer. Do some of your history stuff about the history of masculinity. That'd be great. So she started helping me with content. And during this whole time, we bootstrapped this whole thing. Like, we couldn't take out any money for a loan to buy web designers. So I did everything. If there was a problem with the site, I had to figure it out. You ask people, you tweet things out, you email people who you think might know. You'd be amazed how friendly and willing to help people are if you just ask. So that was really helpful. And the site started making money. We base all our revenue on advertising, primarily advertising. So we started making money, and this was great because you're in law school. And you have your debt up to your eyeballs. We were able to start paying down debt, but I started reinvesting a lot of that money back into the site, most of it actually. So I hired a web designer who actually knew what he was doing to design the site, do a redesign, and that's what you see today. And what's great, the way I found that guy, he was a fan of the Art of Manliness, and he kind of got what we were trying to do. So that's another thing. We've had people wanted T-shirts at one point. Like, I don't know anything about making T-shirts. So I did like a design contest, like community members who read the site, and we had people vote on it. And we had some T-shirt design. Then I went to some T-shirt screen printing place here in Tulsa, and had them print off a couple T-shirts, and we sold them on the site. But then a couple months later, we actually had this great big T-shirt company called Tank Farm Clothing. These guys based in California who love our site, and like, your T-shirts suck. That's what they said. And I was like, I know, they suck. They're not that great. And he says, we want to design and sell T-shirts for you. It's like, okay. So yeah, they design our T-shirts, and they take care of all the shipping and handling, all that stuff. And so that's been a great partnership. And it just came about because someone liked what we did, and we explored the opportunities that were there. Let's see. So what else? How else did I make my idea happen to where it's gotten today? Yeah, and now we're kind of in a comfortable place. My wife and I, we do this full time now. I graduated in law school in 2009, and we were making enough money from the site that we were barely, eking out a living. And we decided, you know what? Let's do this full time. And so I told my parents, Mom, Dad, I'm not going to take the bar exam. I'm not going to be a lawyer. And they're like, what? And then I said, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to be a professional blogger. And, they don't understand. They didn't understand at the time what that meant. So they're kind of dubious, but they said, okay, well, it's your life. Do whatever you want. And, explaining that to my 94-year-old grandpa, I think my mom kind of like lied to him for a while. I was like, is Brett taking the bar exam? And my mom was like, well, not yet. He's going to do it eventually. And but now we've tried to explain to my grandpa what I do, and he thinks he's like, oh, well, you bought a house, so you must be doing okay. Didn't take the bar exam, but I did sort of, I guess, have a moment of hesitation. I didn't jump all the way in. We were doing the site full time after I graduated for a few, like 6 months, and I started this feeling like, man, I just really wasted 3 years of my life going to law school and getting a degree that I'm not even going to use. I should really do something to use this. So I actually went and worked for a legal publishing company, and it was Thomson Reuters, doing this kind of a corporate gig, and I was trying to do the site. And at this point, like, we were writing our second book. My wife was pregnant, trying to do the blog and handle this like corporate gig because I felt I needed to do that, and that lasted all of about 6 months, and I had to resign. And thankfully, my boss was very gracious, and he was totally supportive, and now here I am today. Running the Art of Manliness. We're in a good place. The traffic continues to go up. We're getting new followers all the time on Facebook, on Twitter, and it's just the best thing about what we do is getting the emails and the letters from people saying, your site changed my life. Those are the most that's why you do it. That makes up for all the trolls and people who come on your site saying this is the stupidest thing in the world. Why would you read a blog about how to be a man? But when you get those guys who are like, man, I was in a bad place in my life, but your articles inspired me to get off my butt and do something more. That's the best part of what we do. So that's my story and how I made it happen. Just basically bootstrapping everything and putting a lot of sweat equity and making it happen and seeing a need. I think that's the important thing. I saw a need and a niche that wasn't being filled, and I put it there. So many people, you hear the advice like follow your passion, which I guess is okay advice, but I have a passion for like eating pancakes. That's not going to put food on the table. I think the most successful entrepreneurs or content producers, they see a need and they fill it. Like before I started this site, I wasn't particularly passionate about manliness. Like I wanted to be a better man. I wasn't obsessing about it, but I saw that there was a need, an opening for something that I wanted to, what I saw was missing, and so I did it. So that's my story.